They are all emerging economies, yet considered very powerful. They all enjoy a fairly decent relationship with the West, but yet seen as a threat by many. An association of Brazil, Russia, China, India and South Africa, together known as BRICS, was touted as a challenge to the Western hegemony or a challenge to the US-led institutions. But in the last couple of years, this club of countries has not made any significant global headline. The question is, has the bubble of BRICS burst? And where is India in all this? Earlier today, I interviewed Professor Dibesh Anand, Head of Politics and International Relations at University of Westminster. I began by asking, what does he make of BRICS as things stand now?
BRICS was never a very powerful entity. In fact, it was an idea conjured up by Goldman Sachs. They imagined that the world would shift and you'd have rise of BRIC, in particular Brazil, Russia, India and China, and that would pose some kind of challenge to the Western dominated international system. What really happened was that kind of idea led to some reality where the 4 different countries came together. Then they of course realized Africa was being neglected, so they made South Africa join them. It was largely a sort of a high level discussion where they claimed that they wanted more multilateralism, multipolarity in the world. That's what they were doing. But it was never meant to be an alternative to NATO. The Western country that dominated was UK, then France, then from UK, France, it became US, right? So they have dominated. It's more of a concern for the West, but for the rest of the world, right, that was largely developing and other things, it's no big deal because they do see that India and China are developing countries, so they share some things in common with them, but they also acknowledge that India and China don't work very well together. So therefore, while Westerners may fantasize or fear the rise of BRICS, the reality is that differences are too many among these countries for it to become a coherent political entity.
Okay, I'm glad that you mentioned India because I wanted to bring India into the debate. So how do you see the role of India today? The fastest growing economy in the world is looking up to India, it's a vibrant democracy. How do you see, do you think that India is actually playing up to the expectations, or do you think it's somewhere it has a sort of laid back approach when it comes to BRICS?
I won't say it has a laid-back approach. I'll pick up on 2 points you made. One is, of course, the fastest growing economy, or the fastest growing large economy, and it is also about the vibrant democracy. Now, of course, what we have noticed in recent times is that economies continue to grow, and yet there have been various economic slowdowns in India, right? Demonetization, one part of it. At best, it did not have much impact. At worst, it actually led to more misery amongst population. The reality is, majority of people in India suffer. There's growing inequality. There's a few who are benefiting from it, right? So that has to be kept in mind. So can there be a major global power that has that level of huge inequality? That's the question for India. Regarding the vibrant democracy, again that is in question because with the recent government, and I say not recent anymore because Modi came to power with BJP in 2014, there have been various questions around the fact that democracy is in crisis in India. So what was the largest selling point or biggest selling point for India, being the world's largest democracy, is under question mark now. The whole meaning of democracy means majority rule, minority rights and right to dissent without fear. Now with BJP in power, of course, majority rule is being respected, right? That's sure. But minority rights are being challenged and under question. So that aspect of democracy is under challenge, and even right to dissent without fear. So for instance, if the media people or academics or activists who question Modi, question BJP, they are touted as anti-national. That itself shows that there is a crisis in terms of democracy in India. But the major problem remains how India can act as a coherent democracy, a vibrant democracy with all the internal crisis, deal with the problems in South Asian region, and then emerge as global power.
So there are 2 things. One is the problems that, after the ascension of Mr. Modi that India is seeing, and as you were suggesting, the problem with the image of India globally. And on the other hand, what I'm trying to understand is, since Modi is considered as somebody who's a strong leader who has been going all over the place, all over the world, and giving a sort of image that India is open for business and it has a strong leadership which will help you to invest there and get things done quickly. So with the India, which is led by Modi, a strong leader, and which is open for business, do you think it is an advantage for BRICS? How do you see that?
After 2002, when there was a pogrom against Muslims in Gujarat under Chief Ministership of Narendra Modi, right? At that point in time, the only country that welcomed him was China. So China has always cultivated him. Because the reason is because China is also a power where minority rights are hardly respected, and of course there is no right to dissent without fear. So for them, it makes sense to do more business with Modi. Now the fact that, let's say, Modi is close to Donald Trump, Again, that should be seen as a criticism by many rather than a praise. That's how I would see it. The fact that other Western countries are trying to woo India shouldn't be a surprise, because of course Western countries are as interested in business, even though they might pay lip service to human rights. But the reality is, while the governments and big business here in different parts of the world want to do business in India, though there's not much investment in India, the reality is the media here also comes up with stories, and which is based on reality, including beef lynching, so lynching of Muslims in the name of beef eating. Those things make people realize that India is not what they thought it was, which is the world's largest democracy, but it's a kind of a democracy in crisis, of the way in which, for instance, the US is in crisis.
So are you therefore suggesting that India, since with its dented image as things stand now, it's more sort of, liability to BRICS than an asset, which it was seen as?
Again, with BRICS, the most important country is China. China is a country that has behaved responsibly internationally, but it has authoritarian system at home. You have got Russia with similar kind of system. You had got Brazil that had a broadly progressive president, but that was also gone. So in a way, India is no worse than other countries. But the reality is, Modi's coming to power or not has very little bearing on how BRICS functions.
Under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, democracy in India has been damaged.
It has been damaged because, as I said, democracy is not only about majority rule. The fact that they're brute majority should remind us of, we could look at Turkey. Erdogan wins more votes than Modi ever could imagine or dream of, right? But that doesn't imply that democracy is not in crisis in Turkey, because you've got a very divided system. You've got minorities are being crushed. In case of Modi and BJP, again, part of foreign policy is the continuity from Congress, right? Part of it is, yes, Modi is making it more coherent, but the reality is the biggest crisis is taking place within India, where the country is divided, where Modi has failed singularly to bring together people who oppose him.
The next BRICS summit would be hosted by South Africa in Johannesburg. Would it mark a watershed in the history of BRICS? Or would it, as they say, be all about all hats and no cattle? Anilesh Kumar, Democracy News Live, London.